So hello again, everyone, and thank you for being here today. So I'm looking up Tuesdays with this project, so carried out by Solidarius with CRIES and UFISC and Actif. So thank you so much for being here today for our third and last webinar of our cycle, our training cycle on local participation and ecological transition in artistic and cultural alternative places. So once again, just for your information, this is a collaborative Erasmus Plus project. So the objective is for us to exchange together. So don't hesitate to ask questions, of course. And you can find all information on a Moodle platform that was set up by Repass Europe, one of our partners. And so Solidaris puts after each webinar the recorded webinar and all resources that you can find again. So don't hesitate to use it as a place where you can also chat, because there's a forum. So please use it for yourself, and don't hesitate to share it. So we've done two webinars, one 3 weeks ago on concretely what are artistic and cultural alternative places. So we had a few elements of definition. Last week, we talked more specifically on sustainable development. And today, we will talk more specifically on artistic and cultural projects and the link to local democracy. We'll have an introduction by Fanette from Actif, who is going to talk to us a little bit more on what is Actif as a network and a few elements of context. And then we'll have Susan Clark, who is currently the director of Stowe Creates, but who founded B Arts. And for us, it was very interesting to have her here today because she met Mathieu from Les Poussières through a European project, and who has developed cooperations and especially exchange on artistic and cultural projects. So it was very interesting to invite her today. And we'll have as well, so as our two case studies that we've been talking about since the first webinar, Les Poussières with Mathieu, who's also going to present to us more about their artistic and cultural projects, and with Mathilde, Le Shakiraï, who is also going to tell us more about those projects. And we'll have a small collaborative time with a Padlet just after Fanette's introduction. So once again, thank you so much for being here. Don't hesitate to ask questions, and I think we'll get right into it and talk about artistic cultural projects and the link to local democracy. So Fanette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Laure. Hi, everybody. So the idea here is to have a large and big introduction around the common values and principles of action or operations of Actif Network members. So each member of Actif recognize themselves in a charter, and I will develop about the three principles which are linked with our subject here. So how artistic and cultural projects contribute to local democracy. This thank you for the link of the website. So the first point of the charter is about artistic projects that represent sorry. So the first point is about artistic projects. So the members of Active Network all are shared places for artistic work. So this is the art of the activities and of the project of these places. So they defend artistic and cultural diversity through an ethic of sharing and collective dynamics. So we can say that the space in itself is an artistic démarche or process, artistic and cultural the project. So the specificity maybe versus the specificity is that they are shared working place for artists, but with a big focus on research and experimenting work. So they focus on the process of creating rather than the presentation of finished objects. And this point means that the places are open to a diversity of people and projects. So they are open to professional artists, but also amateur artists, inhabitants, and also local organizations, local authorities. And all these peoples at the end forms communities who organize the activities that shape collective and local cultural life from and around the alternative place. So this is the first point of the Charter of Actives. The second point is that all other places are independent entities or independent places in the sense that the projects are developed by civil society, so from artistic or cultural actors, and so this is important because in France we have a lot of artistic and cultural places. I don't know comment on dit lieux labellisés.
Labelized spaces.
Thank you. Labelized spaces from states. So these independent places, the teams lead the projects and they are autonomous in defining their objectives and operational rules. And this point is linked with the participative and cooperative dimension and the way of taking decisions. And the third and last point is about local and societal grounding of these places. So it questions the link between art and society and relationship between inhabitants, arts, territories, and culture. So they position their actions within a social and collective interest approach. And as they facilitate access to artistic creation, with a focus on openness, meeting, and sharing. They contribute to ensuring social dialogue and encounters between different audiences. And that's all. Sorry for my English, not very fluid. Sorry.
Thank you, Fanette. So from this charter that has been established within the and with the members of the Active Network, we'll see later on how concretely with Le Chat qui Râle les Poussières, they put those principles in action. So I think it's going to be interesting. So just before we give the floor to Susan, we wanted to share with you a Padlet, just like last time for those who are here. So I'm sharing the Padlet in the chat. For you, maybe to share with us today from this big topic of artistic and cultural projects and the question of participation, local development, and local democracy. If you identify within your experiences or practices or from your perspective, if you identify some issues or challenges that you can identify or that you want to share with us today. So if you want to do so, you can click on your bottom right, there's a plus, and you can write if you want to share with us if you identify issues or challenges regarding the topic. You can we'll put them right under there. And if you have any questions you want to ask after our three case examples that are going to be explained just after that. And if yourself have any examples of initiatives or projects that you want to share with us, it's really interesting for us also to have an idea of any other initiatives and projects we can look at after the webinar. So don't hesitate. If you want, you can also share any comments in the chat or by raising your hand later on during the presentations. So we'll have a few minutes on that, like that you'll be able to have a small moment of brainstorming. Thank you very much for sharing elements and issues, challenges. Just specifically on the question on in what sense are they labeled certified by public institutions? It's the contrary. As independent places, they are not labeled or certified by public institutions. Sorry, I put on the chat the because it was the correct English word to translate in French, label. So yes, and that is a specificity which enables concretely to do what these spaces do with a little bit more freedom. Even if it's not easy. And thank you for the issues and challenges that you raised. I think all of them will be actually, well, the three examples will try to answer them on the question of mobilization, on the question of long-term sustainability, the question of how the links and managing artists versus entertainment programs, and the link with the neighborhoods. So I think it's going to be answered throughout the three examples, and then we can come back in any case to those specific questions. So thank you so much for taking part in and participating in the Padlet. It's very useful for us, I think. So I'll give the floor to Susan, who is going to share with us her PowerPoint. So just as a reminder, Susan is currently the director of Stoke Creates and founder of B-Arts in England. So she'll explain to us where, so in this Stokes area. And again, thank you for sharing and being with us and through this European project. It's really nice of you to be here. So go ahead, Susan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Laure. All right, just give me 2 seconds and I shall just... Right, here we go. Can everybody see that presentation? So you should have a title screen with my name and 2 company names on it.
Perfect, we can see.
So you're great. Okay, great. So my name is Susan Clark, and in 1985 I founded a company called B-Arts. Just because you can't hear people's voices, it doesn't mean they have nothing to say. This was something that was written by one of the people that I started the company with, Jill, and is really a sort of foundational quote for us. So it's something that we think about a lot in the company. Here we are in our first piece of outdoor arts theatre, way back in 1986. At that time, we were called Beavers. We made a lot of work outdoors, made theatre for non-theatre spaces. We co-created participatory arts events and celebrations with communities. The company B-Arts is based in Stoke-on-Trent, which is in the northwest Midlands of the UK. It's south of Manchester, north of Birmingham. A post-industrial city. Ceramics and coal mining were our principal industries. The population is about 260,000. And we, like a lot of cities of our scale and our type, suffer from generational poverty. So over the last 40 years, B-Arts has worked across 4 continents, always making creative and cultural work with people where they are about their lives. And we're proud of the fact that in the 40 years we've been working, some of our artists have moved on to make their own projects and their own companies and moved on from working with us. Here's some of them. In 2014, we moved into a building, and we, before that, were just working out of essentially a workshop and an office space and a storage. We put it all into one building in 2014. But we were very nervous about opening a building that had the arts over the front door, because we feel that there are lots of people for whom that is a big barrier. So at the front of our building, we put a cafe and a bakery, and we opened that space, and it's still going now as a space where we have exhibitions, conferences, festivals, workshops, and a waste food cafe. The company is a registered charity. So in the UK, this is the most regulated form of not-for-profit or NGO that you can be. So you have a board of trustees who oversee the strategic direction of the organisation. The company began as a cooperative, and the company shows that origin in a couple of ways. The first way is that as a charity, we're also a membership charity. So that it means that people who've worked for the organisation or associated with the organisation over a year can become members. We can have up to 200 members, and the members can elect the trustees, use the company resources, and they meet at least once a year to determine the company's strategic direction. And it's really helpful to have the membership, because if we have to make big decisions, the company has to make big decisions, you need that membership to be involved in that. The other way that the operation of the company is kind of reflects its roots is that it's a very small team at the center of the organization with a very flat hierarchy. No one has a full-time job, and decisions are made on a consensus basis. I left BArts in 2023, and I'm now the chief executive of another not-for-profit company called Stoke Creates. Stoke Creates was put together by 8 individuals who all represented larger partner organisations all in the city. And they're not just organisations in the cultural sector. And it came about because we bid to be UK City of Culture in 2017. And what we needed was a larger structure who could manage and direct strategic initiatives. It took us a while to actually launch the company, which is why it only really got going in 2023. Stoke Creates' job is to do what no single cultural organisation locally can do. So we don't deliver work directly to people, we run a number of projects. So we run the Exchange Forum, where we convene artists in open networks. We link artists to other sectors, to the health sector, education, into city planning, and we feed arts and culture into policy locally, regionally, and nationally. We raise money for new commissions, and we talk about the story of Stoke. It's difficult working in our city, but the assets we have here, the people, the buildings, the green space, the canal, our history, are all really important to us, and we use those as the basis, the foundations for our future. So I'm often asked, what's the role that arts and cultural organisations play in developing local democracy? Surely it's just for fun, isn't it? I mean, there are all these pressures on funding, and there's no resources for the fun bit. Anyway, it's just activities for kids, isn't it? So it's not a priority. So in my work with BArts and Stoke Creates, we try and address this head on by saying, well, what are the challenges if you want to engage people in local democracy, if you want people to care, to connect with their place, and to be involved in decision making? How are you doing that? And what are the things that stop you doing that? Well, people say to me, some people, they're just hard to reach. They say to us, get involved. I don't want to get involved. It doesn't mean me. And we would say, well, real inclusion is about making opportunities shaped like the people, not shaped like you. You need to walk in their shoes, sit with people, listen, take time, do what they tell you to do. And arts is really special in this sense because it offers inclusion, but more. It's not only consultation, but it's full involvement. You need to find people's skills, capacities, and shape a place for that in the project. Take the materials of their lives and help them turn it into something else. So you've got a picture here of the Little School of Improbable Cooking. We were asked by a community group to come and work with them because the kids in their community centre were all missing school lunches, free school lunches during the holidays. And unless they provided some food at the community centre, the children didn't eat all day. We also heard from local schools that in September, when the children came back to school, their attainment levels, their literacy levels were really low. So we came up with a project after sitting with the kids, watching what they were doing, talking to them, seeing how interested they were when we started cooking. We did something called the Little School of Improbable Cooking, where kids came for the day and they would make food, make a meal with us. But what they did as well was that they engaged in an imaginative scenario. So we gave them an immersive theatre problem, like, oh my goodness, a dragon's escaped and we need to attract it back in. What should we feed it? So all of the ingredients became different things. They all became metaphors for treasure or clouds or trees or little sheep. And everyone's meal was designed to attract the dragon back into the room. They also took time to work with a poet and wrote stories around what they were making. So all in all, the project really kind of met with what the needs of the young people were and gave everyone a nice meal. I put that slide in again because that's the same place. That's the first, this is last year, this picture here. And the picture before was when we started doing that project. People don't talk to each other, do they, these days? So you need to make a space where intergenerational communication can happen, where conversations can happen. And so we took over a park and worked with the kids making animations. We then, at the end of the week, showed them on a big screen and an outdoor cinema. It's important to understand that this park is somewhere that's mostly known for drug dealing, knife crime. It's a real flashpoint inside this community. So to have it taken over in a positive way by the kids and by their families, even if it was only for one night, was a really special thing. Lanterns are a great way of just connecting everybody. They're something that everyone can do. And also they give you time to talk to one another. People put down their phones, they have to, otherwise they're going to get them covered in glue. So you're doing something that allows people to communicate, but you're also doing something that gives people space to discuss what they want to have in their community, how they'd like their place to be. And that work can turn into something beautiful that everybody shares. You can imagine how a space can be used when you're making lanterns, you're creating a procession in your community, in your neighborhood. What you're saying is it doesn't have to be like this. It could be like this. Find your natural collaborators. Collaboration is at the center of everything. Find the people who want to work with you. Find the people who get you, whoever they are. Some people don't want to collaborate. That's fine. Let them go their own way. Work with the people who share your ambitions, share your objectives. We had a continuous exchange between Poussière and Bearts. We still do. We shared lantern making with them, and they shared the whole concept of using waste food, and we took that and ran with it. And I've just included some more lantern pictures just because we like lanterns. So that's what the Bearts team looks like. That's the community that I left to go and work with Stoke Creates. I think the final thing I wanted to say was just to make sure that whatever you do, just don't make it boring, because there's enough stuff that's boring out there. Make it fun, and just make sure you're telling a good story about your place. It's not always a story about what's happened, but it should be a story about what could be. And artists are just really good at telling those stories. So that is the end of my presentation. And I'm just going to try and get my screen to stop sharing. Hang on.
Thank you, Susan,
No problem.
for this inspiring well, story about Biarritz and Stokes, and I think a lot of things to reflect on. And I think the transition or the transmission is all found with maybe we'll get the rest of the presentations and then have a general discussion. I think we'll see elements that come back in the three examples. So maybe Mathieu, because you
Yep.
develop as well the lanterns, but you do also many other projects.
Sure.
So I'll just share the PowerPoints because
Yeah,
you
we're back in
also
the
have a picture
presentation.
of Les Lanternes.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so as Susan said, we've been working in European project for nearly 15 years. And one of the first European project we did was about storytelling to local communities. We met with the arts. And as I said maybe last time, we just realized that finding a way to empower the local communities and local democracies is very often found sometimes far away, somewhere far away from where you are. It's not always easy to talk about it with local organizations that share all your problems and all your issues and all your anger. So sometimes doing European project is a very good way of finding refreshing ideas and sharing inspiring ideas, such as the lanterns that you see in this picture and you saw on Susan's presentation. So as you uh, um, heard from Susan, we learned to do lanterns through the arts, and now we've developed it on quite a large scale in Aubervilliers, our city, but also in many other cities in France and sometimes abroad as well. So we faced when we settled in Aubervilliers nearly 20 years ago, because the company is about 18 to now 20 years old now. We settled into a six in Aubervilliers, and we just realized that a lot of people, like Susan said, didn't participate in any cultural activity. And the reason why was kind of obscure. It was not only economic, it was not only social, it was also kind of a common sense that it was not for them. They believed it was not for them. And we've tried to, the only mantra that we always got was, how can culture empower people? And how can people be real actors of their own local democracy and their own cultural policies? And there's top down written in this on this slide, which isn't one of my favorite words, because a lot of things in culture, like that Fanet said in France, is about windows, labels, categories, funding, but and when you're doing participatory work, you often fall between uh, boxes. So, and doing bottom-up actions is something very difficult to do. So we've always tried to do as many projects as we could, taking this as a core uh, objective in our action, like trying to do bottom-up actions. So as Susan said, you have to listen to people, you have to listen to what they want, or why do they not do stuff, and you can't force them into doing things, even nicely. So doing very simple participatory lantern construction, as you see on these pictures, but also food, a lot of free activities, but we also move a lot. If you want to empower local democracy, you have to move. You have to go where people are. And that means if they don't want to come and to your space, I will talk about the space, but if they don't want to come to the space, you have to go to them. So we do a lot of workshops as well, literally down the buildings, down where they live. We put tables, we put signs, and we say, hey, come and do lanterns with us. Then we'll do a beautiful march. And so that's one. And two is all about the space. We always explain to people it was difficult. It's not anymore because we are very old in the city now, but people didn't understand why you need a space to do participatory work. And as Susan said, you need a space that doesn't look like a theater, a big official place where people don't dare to go. We've just realized that, like in the main theater in Aubervilliers, this is very easy to anyone going to theater, but if you're going into the theater in Aubervilliers, the big one, it's written nowhere where you have to go and take a ticket. You have to assume that people sitting behind a desk will probably be helping you, but there's a desk, and you have to face your fear to acknowledge that you don't know how it works. So we've tried to make our space looking different, looking home, looking. We try to keep the places as they are. We had 2 different spaces in Aubervilliers. We try to keep them as they are. We also try to keep the objects we make with people somewhere in a space. So we try to make the space as welcoming as we can to people that will recognize this as my people, like things, a place where I feel good. This is very important. It's not only a mean of doing things, a way of doing things. It is very important to make sure that the local democracy is also part of the process of making the space, of building the space. You can do works with people, but every day you can also make sure they can invest parts of the space where you wouldn't imagine they would go, and you let them in. If you go to the next slide, um, uh, we also do, so we build with the community, as I said. We do any kind of building. We like to make stuff. We like to make things because we think that then people can say, I did this. And this is very important because it makes their action visible. It makes their life mean something in the city because there's a sustainable object that stays there that they made. And very often when you see children going into the building for an event, any event, they take their parents' hands and they say, look, this is what I made last week with my friends at the workshop. Like this board game that you see here, we call this a baby-foot in French. So it's a game where you play like football, soccer. And so it's a project where we did this game from scratch. So the kids made everything. They made the wood structure, they made the characters on the bars, they made up the rules. So it's not a regular game, it's a made-up game with specific rules, more inclusive. You have objects that you can put on the board to add obstacles and things like that. And then, having built this, so it was run by a professional designer who helped the kids have the technical means to do what they wanted. But the first question was what do you want to do and how would it serve something? And they said we want to build a game. And so we took that game to do tournaments in the city. So they did competition with it. It's on wheels, so they took it in the city and they played with a game they had created. And it's just completely different. And now this item is one of the most beautiful item we have in the building. It's like a sculpture. People go and stare at it. It is pretty, but it has a story that we can't, we don't tell. The kids can tell it. The kid can say, I did this and we did this with it. So they own not only the object, it's a community object, but they own the story. They own the way of making it. And they've developed it. So it's also about empowerment, which is a very difficult word to translate into French, but it means that you own not only the result but the process. And that's very important. That's very important to know how you can make sure people have the control of every step of the process and they understand every step of the process. So they're not passive at all from the beginning to the end. And so we do also we promote expression. We try and debate with people. We try to make people say things they wouldn't say to elected people, for example, because they think in Aubervilliers there's a huge abstention, so they don't really vote, and they think, and a lot of people are strangers, so they don't. It's a city which is now about 100,000 inhabitants, which is quite a big city, because we're a suburb of Paris. So 100,000 in a huge megalopolis is something quite big, and only a third of that are voters. So there's 2/3 of the population that doesn't have a right to vote. So you need to find other way to make them express, because they live here, they have a right to say. So we do this through the parades I was telling you about. So we make up lanterns, and at the end of October, after more than 100 workshops, there's nearly now 200 to 300, 2,000 to 3,000 people walking down the street at night with their lanterns. And as Susan said, we go to parks, real estate projects, areas where even the police cannot go in because they receive stones on the cars. And that's something one of the police commissioner told me once. We escort you here because we are making your parade safe. But in fact, it's you making us safe, because we wouldn't go into this area just with a police car. We would get bumped with stones because they own the space. And when we do this, we transform the way people look into the city. They can walk at night with a few thousand of their fellow citizens into areas where they live, but they don't dare to go out at night. So it's also a way to make completely evident that when you get together to do something artistic, you can be very strong. And it's also very nice because it's a huge march. But as someone said, an inhabitant once told me, a lady told me, this is wonderful because it's a march, but it's not religious, and it's not politic, and it's not unions, which is only the three reasons people go to march in the streets in France. We have found another way to invest the street. It looks like a march, but it's nothing else than just being proud of having done an artistic work together. And I think we have the last slide. Yeah, so just to remember what we are, we talked about it a bit more in the previous meetings, but as you know, we're based in Aubervilliers, a northern suburb of Paris. We have a team of 7 people, 3 full-time. We share a community manager, a communication officer with with another non-for-profit organization, and we have 2 apprentices and 1 workshop leader, which is subsidized by the state. But we have 4 people working in the team plus 1 shared position and 2 apprentices. We also do professional residencies every year. We did 6 in 2024. So it's very important that we welcome artists, not only from our local territory, but from elsewhere, to work on a space, because a space is also for art. So we make sure that artists can come and do very good professional art and share it with people. So they can also be proud of the building being really part of the professional art network. And that's empowered by the people, because as Susan said, in our community, our organization is the same thing as the arts. We are a non-for-profit. We are an association in French, which is exactly the same as a charity in the UK. And so people vote, we have members. And so most of our members are inhabitants of Aubervilliers. There's no rule in this, but in fact, people are inhabitants of the city. So they welcome professional artists just because they got together and they got a building. We have more than 2,000 participants in all our workshops and activities in the year. We do 40 workshops in the space, not counting the lanterns, because the lanterns is more than 100. It's a specific project every 2 years, but regularly we do 40 workshops every year. Can be visual arts, can be cooking, can be different techniques. And we do half of that also outside. So we do workshops everywhere, in schools, in public spaces, in the street, through partnership with libraries, etc., etc., etc. And we do quite a lot of projects as well outside the city. We try to import this into other cities that want to get the flavor of what is doing a participatory art project. So we do mainly lanterns when we do this. So we don't sell only a parade. We just send a team many weeks before, train people there, local youth professionals, for example, and then we came back every 3 weeks, for example, and at the end we stay in the city for about 3 weeks, 15 days, and we make the final step with them. But it's also we try to invest into the local community and try to understand it. That's why we go many times before, and we try and make understand to people funding it that we need a lot of time, because we need to make sure we understand the territory where we are before building up something big. And I think this is it. Thank you. I'm sorry, my voice is I got the flu, so my voice is completely down. But I think, yeah, you probably trying to get it.
We heard you very well, Mathieu. So thank you so much for all of this information. And so last but not least, our third story about Le Chakirail, and then we'll exchange on all of that.
Okay. Okay. Well, so we're going to talk about the case of the Chakirail. I have just 4 slides. Sorry, we are just trying. Okay, I think that everybody is can listen to me. Okay. So yeah, about the Chakirail, and I'm going to talk about also the collective Curivavard, because the Chakirail is one of the sorry, là, juste on ne voit pas. I don't understand why the video is not on me, but anyway. So okay, so the Chakirail is just one place, but in the collective we have 4 different places in Paris. So about I think that about our topic today, we have 2 different approaches. One is about inside the collective, and the other part is about people really outside the collective. So I'm going to start with the inside. And so even in our open and shared governance inside the collective and inside the Chakirail, we are trying to do it as democratic as we can. So for example, about the member involvement, as we are not really renting the spaces for the artist, but only working together to have shared places, workshops, we are asking our members, our around 80 members in the collective Curivavard, and half of the members are in the Chakirail, to invest themselves voluntarily in the venue in return for the very low cost workspace. So this is one way to be really part and more democratic, as these invest in return is a way to be sure that we are not just a professional team, but really a more democratic team. So all the decisions are collective decision making. So we have different sort of assembly inside the Chakirail and also in the collective. In the Chakirail, we meet every week on Wednesday night to talk about the place and take all the decisions we need about projects, but also about some issues we can have on the place, and also all the development of the place, the strategy, and everything that can be useful to be sure that the project still involve the people working in the place. And so as we are 4 places, we also have a monthly assembly, and we change the place of the meeting every month. And so as we are also an association, sort of NGO, so we are really asking the people to take part of the decisions and to vote once per year, but also every month to discuss in order to prepare the different topics that we will have to vote and choose by consensus or consent. Inside the collective, even if we are very different places, because we are not talking about the same disciplines and the same topics and even the same neighborhoods, because we are all in the northeast of Paris, but not in the same area exactly. So, but still we have a mutual aid between the different sites. So we just have one bank account, one board, but also one team, and all the people working for the association are really working together. So even the projects, we are really doing it collectively between artists, coordinators, and the Salarian team. And to finish with the governance, the inside governance and the democracy inside our governance, as we are taking decisions, we are also co-drafting all the regulation and charters to be sure that everybody knows how it works. So we have different sort of charters. We have an internal regulations for the entire association, making all the different rules and be sure that all the new people involved in the project understand also the association. And we have different charters for each sort of workshops we have, and they are co-written by the users. And users can be members of the association as artists, but also outside associations. So we are talking now about the I don't see it on my okay. So another way for us to talk about to be open to other people and not just be a place for artists working there. It's to be sure that the place is quite open and accessible for most of the people, and especially for people living around the Chakirai, because we are in the neighborhood since 2011, so near 15 years, and still we see that some people are not comfortable about going to the Chakirai, because we are not open every day, because we organize some workshops open for people, but that's not on a regular basis. So the first impression of seeing a door shut is very impressive for people living there. So we are trying to find different ways to be sure that people are going inside at least once and have a chance to talk with the artists working there, to understand more the project, and to see that we are not trying to keep the place private, and we are not trying to gentrify the area, especially because we are working with quite precarious artists. So even the people working there are not sort of untouchable, bankable, and very some of them are renowned for sure, but they are not trying to make art as something very to sell. Yes, well, c'est le côté intouchable un peu. Yes, inaccessible. Thank you. Okay, so trying to be accessible. One thing is that we have quite open programming. We are not programming directly. We don't have an editorial line, and we just receive a lot of different proposals from artists from the outside. And so we are not programming. We are giving space to test for emerging forms of very invisibilized work of arts. So, for example, we are not paying directly the artists using the stage. We are giving them a space, a team, material, audiovisual, lights and sound systems. And we are also helping them to promote their work. And it's really a place, it's not a normal theater, it's a place to test and to try when they are emerging artists. And so on this open programming, we also try to be very multidisciplinary to be sure that everybody can go here in the Shakirai, even if they are not. We are not only talking about experimental arts, for example, and we have also quite very open gatherings. About the prices, all the events we organized or we host are free or open price. So people just pay as they want and as much as they can. And it's really with a non-profit logic, and also to permit that even children sometimes in the neighborhood, they are not with their parents, and so they can access to the place without paying anything, but that the same for the adults for sure. About the residencies we organize, so we are talking about artists, professionals, not amateurs, but for us it's important that it's not very selective. So because we are thinking that the Shakirai must welcome all projects by creators who live from their heart or to aspire to make a living from it. So we are not the judges, we are not a gallery. So if somebody is looking for a place to work, and if we have the ability and the space to host his project, for sure we're going to say yes for a residency. And this is quite rare, and so it really gives the opportunity to make some experience and research about work of arts, and also to have the ability to make a production for example, just for one exhibition. And even if it's not going to be a very big project, we try to we're not looking for bankable artists. We are just trying to be to give it access to everybody. And so it's really linked with the definition of emergence that we share in the active networks, to be sure that we are not thinking only about young artists, because sometimes you can't apply to some subsidies or projects if you are more than, for example, 35 years old. And we think that we have to go beyond age and also beyond discipline criteria, and to give access to people working in different sort of disciplines, because sometimes it's difficult to, if you're not only working on theater or only on music, but if you're making at the same time audiovisual and sculptures, I don't know. So the collectives are the good places to host that sort of projects. Okay, so next slide, we're going to talk about, that's a bit like was saying Mathieu. We know that it's not easy to reach the people and to host directly the people inside. So, for example, a lot of people don't understand what we do in the Shakirai. So we decided to put the definition of the place on the wall outside to be sure that everybody is able to understand, even if you don't have access to the internet or if you don't have time to look about the place. And also we try to find some people are just not interested in art. And so we try to find other way to interest them and also to serve them. And so sometimes people just don't have time to go to a show or a concert, but they still have community activities and we can host them inside the Shakirai. So, for example, we did a lot of building work, to have a big multi-purpose space and a kitchen. And so we give free or very low prices access and use of these spaces, especially for association from the neighborhood. And we always have a solidarity pricing scale for association and militant projects. We are not trying to make profit on it. It's just to ask people to participate on the charges of the association and the building. Also, we are making off-site workshops with the local residents, especially with social landlords, city services. And as was saying Mathieu, we do it directly at the foot of the buildings, and especially during bank holidays. So to try to offer the opportunity for children who don't go away for holidays to participate and to have access to these activities for free, for sure. And also we are making interventions in the public space. So to give the ability to people to choose what their living environment should look like, because sometimes in the participative budgets, the decisions are already made and all the projects are already written. So people are just, they just have the right to vote for a project, but not to build it directly. So that sort of interventions, people are really participating on the creative part of the project. For example, about frescoes, or also when we are doing works on the neighborhood about theater, but also it's a way for people to talk about their neighborhood and to so that for example, the picture on the right, it's also a way to exchange with people and to listen to their stories about the city. And now the last slide is maybe the opposite. As we are trying to go to reach people outside, we are also trying to encourage themselves to be part of the projects. So, for example, we have a small room where we set a meeting room, and it's run by the local associations. So they have the key, and they really have to self-manage the space. So we are trying that it's also a way to involve themselves inside the place, to give them the same position that the other artists. And so they can vote, they are really members of the association, and it's a self-organized. So it's also a way to of transmission of the way of self-management and a more militant action. And so that's also the case when we are trying to experiment and together as a collective, but also with the people and the associative actors working in the neighborhood. So we are organizing courses, introductions, and training with other associations to share competencies and knowledge about our different topics we are making. And we are not only talking about arts, but also very different topics about ecology, social needs, social issues, or just the local politics. And to finish, I would like to talk about the action research program we are making since last year. And it's about having a group of inhabitants making a participative programmation inside the Shakirai. And it's really made by and for the neighborhood. So in last year, they did 3 different events, and it's we are accompanied and observed by a socio-urbanist and an anthropologist. And it's really a bottom-up project where we just accompany the people, but the idea is to let them organize themselves at the end. And so we are trying to accompany themselves about governance, very technical aspect about what is it to organize an event. And maybe an event, it's not organized a festival, it's just putting on a big screen and looking at a football party or something like that. We don't want to choose what they should do, and we just give them the opportunity to use the space as much as they want. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mathilde, for giving us more information on Le Shakirai. So maybe we can give, maybe if you have questions or comments on the 3 different presentations we just had, we have at least 10 minutes to exchange or ask questions to our 3 guests, Susan, Mathilde, and Mathieu. So you can use the chat or raise your hand or open your mic, and if you have any questions. Go ahead, Susan. Thanks.
So, yes, so I had a question which was about gentrification. I noticed on the Padlet that people were talking about gentrification. And I just wondered if anybody on the call has perhaps an experience that I mean, I am sure that lots of people on this call have an experience of a negative experience of gentrification, but has anybody managed to navigate the experience positively?
It's indeed a question we've had, and also on the previous webinar regarding ecological transition and how these projects are sustainable indeed, and how do we keep those spaces when, especially when we look at, and we talked about it on your example, Susan, but as well with Le Chacun and Les Poussières in very dense cities. It's a real a problem. Maybe Mathilde, you wanna?
Yeah, I think that sometimes we are not, for example, in Le Chacun, we are not changing the price of the square meter in the suburb because we are in a very, we have very different prices between La Butte Montmartre, so the very posh area, and it's 15,000 euros per square meter, and in our area it's more or less 7,000 euros. And so even after 15 years, the population is still quite poor in this area, and it's still cheaper than other parts in Paris. And I think that's a way to change and to be sure that we are not making hard gentrification, but more an opening and accessibility, is to give space for invisibilized projects. For example, when we host migrants or about social or about alimentation, for example, there is no public equipment to give space for this project. So these projects are outside in the streets. It's just better to have them in a, well, not really warm space because we are in a very bad shape building, but still it's a way to help to work together. And so I think it's maybe something we can do. We also try to make, because we are close to a bridge between two districts, and there are a lot of fighting between the young people living from the different parts, and also it's a place where we have a lot of drug addicts. So sometimes to find a welcoming place and quiet and without no institutionalized people or unconventional people, it's like sort of safe space, and to be able to start this to discuss. Yeah.
Thank you. Mihaela, you commented on the fact that these places and projects are linked to also the question of citizenship and how and maybe I guess in your comment, kids from schools also learn the question of citizenship. Was that the comment you were making, Mihaela?
Yes, but also, as Mathilde said,
To speak up.
sorry. As the Mathilde said, also the citizens are involved in routing project, express themselves. It's like a laboratory for this citizenship, I think, not only in schools. And I appreciate a lot these aspects.
Yeah, it's true. As I said, it's giving a voice to people that don't have the technical right to vote. which is the traditional way to express citizenship, and also because people in France nowadays, especially in the world we're living in right now, they don't believe in voting that much anymore. So, and that's a big risk because the far right is then taking over. So we we don't have the answer to everything, but we try to give people a voice anyway. So to find a way for them to have a citizen impact on their city and in a more concrete way than voting every 4 years. So we try. I don't say that you shouldn't vote because you should vote, and we try to tell people when you do protest that you should vote. But then it's a way to make also them understand sometimes when you do things. We did this thing because people who vote said that we're a good organization, and now the city knows that a lot of voters are also members of our company. So there's not so many people vote in our city. So the elected mayor, and they know that the people that are invested in organizations usually vote more than people doing nothing. So they come to what we do because they know that the people there will be voters, more likely to be voters than somewhere else. People involved in citizenship, they vote more. So it's also a way to make elected uh, representative understand that supporting your projects, they also get in touch with the voters, which is sometimes difficult to do as well.
I don't know if you have other questions or comments or well, maybe to try to link those three projects and examples together. What I maybe can summarize, but hoping not to simplify too much, but what I think we heard from the three examples is the importance of the collective, the question of how things are run, how things are organized as a collective, and being an open collective, having also very different people implicated in those three projects, whether they're volunteers, team members, workers, artists, inhabitants. It's the diversity that is very interesting in all of those examples and projects. I think the question of space was very important, the question of having a space, but having a space that is different from maybe artistic institutions that we generally show, but having really a space, as you said, Mathieu, that is welcoming, that is home. A space also for artists, because that is also one of the specificity of those artistic and cultural spaces. And having a possibility to have a space to have an indoor space for projects, people, and workshops, but as well the fact of going outdoors and reaching out, going into places where people live and are. And the question of mobility and the public space for me seems to come back in those three projects, how we reinvent and reinvest the public space. And the question of doing together, the question of the process came a lot, and having how we get people to empower themselves, get the power back, and go back to creating something from A to Z, and also the fact of making and showing is very important. Listening to what people have to say and letting them be in the propositions in themselves, and maybe what I also want to say as a conclusion is also the what we consider as arts and culture. I think in also those examples is a very broad definition of arts and culture, and also making link with cultural rights. how we take into account everyone's culture, identity, and way of seeing, and as a very broad sense also of culture. The example of food came up in the three examples, and how, for example, with that we can we share and we do artistic and cultural projects. So I think that's what we've tried to show throughout the three webinars, was the specificity, but as well the hybrids and the possibilities those spaces offer, and how they are inherently artistic and cultural in so many ways, and enable local developments in different ways, and also this question of local democracy. I think these spaces are striving to survive, and it's difficult, and it's a lot of work and a lot of implication and we try as best as possible to throughout the networks, for example, Actif and UFIS, to support them, to accompany them, and to show these concrete examples in our everyday works, and for example this project. So it was for us also a way to show that through these examples there's a lot of skills, a lot of ways of doings, and a conception of collaboration and cooperation that for us is also very important. So thank you very much for following this webinar, and maybe also the first and second one that you can see again on the Moodle platform. And also I'll let Chiara to present to us also something for us that is also very important, and we've talked about it, is public policies. How do we support these spaces, and how do we support local development, and how do we get funding also for these spaces? So Chiara, which is here, I will let you present to us also this specific lab.
Okay. Really quickly, I put in the chat a link of our Padlet. As you already know, I think almost all of you, we are collecting policies or funding program regarding all the policies regarding our topics, so local development, community management, and building, and transition, and food. So we are trying to collect all these political framework at transnational level that help us to create a useful tool that we will put in our toolkit at the end of the project. So we would like to ask you to support in this collective research to have more complete elements to insert. It's also in the Moodle platform, so you can do whatever you want during these days, months, and so on. You have time, but please contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara, so for sharing with us the Padlet. And I'll also leave Mihaela, if you'll stay with us maybe 5 more minutes just to finish up, because we also like to conclude with an evaluation session to get better, and also to have your input. And then we'll have a last presentation of the next cycle of webinars and training from CRIES. So stay with us for 5 more minutes if it's okay with you. Mihaela, you have the floor.
Okay, as usually, I send you in the chat the feedback questionnaire. It's an easy one. I think 2-3 minutes to fulfill the questionnaire to give us your feedback. And after that, I will advocate a little bit for our third module that will happen in March. but I let you for 2 minutes to fulfill the questionnaire. So we already have 15 questionnaires fulfilled, so it's good. Thank you for this. If I can share.
You want to share, Miha? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just to introduce the third module, because in 1 month, on 11 March, we'll start this third module and we'll discuss about urban-rural relationship through food and short supply chains. And together with my colleagues from another two organizations from Romania, ASAT and Alimentera, we like to have in consideration this thematic, but in the context that you have. It's about climate change and the pressing need for democracy and solidarity at local and international level. So we'll look on this thematic, having in mind this the particular moment that you pass as society. So we propose you 3 sessions, 3 thematics. First session, we'll discuss more about the global food system and its impact, and we like to understand a little bit some impact at international and European level. In the session 2, we'll talk about how to build resilient community having this kind of short supply chain. We'll try to define the model of short supply chain to understand the benefits, but some limits of this model. And in the third session, we'll try to identify together with our speakers and guests the necessary resources, how we can build the short supply chain at local level. So this is the general presentation. In some days, we can send you more information about the content of each session. So I think the thematic it's adequate to cultural sector, because we need artists and the cultural sector to imagine the present and the future, but also from people from social solidarity, economy initiatives, and rural organization. So we hope that you have as much as possible from your organization and your partners. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Mihaela. So we'll meet, I hope, all together on March 11th. Thank you so much for this webinar. Thank you again. So Susan, Mathieu, and Myrti, his colleague, and Mathilde, and of course the Solidarius and CRIES team. So don't hesitate to go on the Moodle platform to look at the webinars, or if you have any other questions, you can ask them there. And I just will tell you to have a nice evening and thank you again. Yes, do we need Chiara to sign up for the next set of workshops? I think if you've already registered, you'll get the same link. It's the same link anyways, and you'll get another email with the program reminding you for the dates, time. It's still on each Tuesdays at the same time, and it's the same link. So if you've already registered, but don't hesitate to send the link to other people you might find that could be interested in this next session. So thank you very much, and see you soon, and have a nice evening again. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank
and
you.
have a nice evening
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.